Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Richard Graves from the Richard Graves Group. I am a historian and DJ of Chicago house music. Now, I did start DJing with, New York electro and b-boy and punk and all that stuff back in the day. But my primary claim to fame is house music, Chicago house music primarily. Now, this is part 2 of the show. I had a great DJ, JM3, Mr. John Moore III. Co-DJ, good guy, knows a lot about the history, was around for a lot of history. We're talking about the history of house music as it began in 1979. No, that's not when house music began. That's when disco declined and kind of opened the door for what built up to 1984-85 Chicago house music. We talked about a few things. We talked about New York last week. And New Jersey, Mr. Tony Humphreys and Club Zanzibar. We got some feedback from some Jersey DJs that kind of told us from their perspective what was going on and when they were introduced to the sounds of Chicago. But without further delay, let me bring on John so we can go ahead and chop it up and talk about house music. What's up, John?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming back, brother. I appreciate you coming back on, being willing to spend time with us and talk about the music. As you guys see, we have a Hot Mix 5 logo back there. No, neither John or I were in the Hot Mix 5. What we are, we're giving them their respect, though. And we're going to talk about those guys today. One of the things we're going to talk about is each of the members in our experiences and memories, or things we did with them or spun with them, times we spun with them. So, John, if you don't have the objection, I think we should just cover each of the guys. You got a moment?
Sure.
Okay, first and foremost, let's talk about Kenny Jammin' Jason. Did you ever meet Kenny, ever spin with Kenny? What was your perception of? What do you think of Kenny Jason?
Well, I didn't spin with him till years later. I've heard about Kenny back in the day. Kenny was actually, if you remember the Sheba Disco.
Yes.
All right. The Sheba Disco, their DJ was Don St. James. He couldn't mix oil and water, but that's
before you go. I don't remember. My mama went. She told me about it. I never went, but go ahead. All right. I just want to make it clear before you weren't there. You were only just 8. No, I wasn't, but my mom went. Me and my mom talked to me about everything when it came to music and disco and stuff like that. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, it was pretty much the same with my sister. I had a sister named Karen that worked at Ford, and she was a little club hopper herself. So, but she remembers Kenny as as they put it. I mean, I'm not trying to be derogatory. The white boy that could go, because he was cold on the turntables, and he was brought into the Sheba because of that fact. Wow. Now, a lot of people don't know that, but Kenny was doing clubs on the South Side for years, even after DAI. That's how he got picked to be the head of the Hot Mix 5.
Wow. Amazing. Well, my memory of Kenny Jason, obviously, I heard him on DAI, then I heard him on BMX. And I told you back in 82, 83, I think I was a break dancer, coming into break dancing. I think that, 82, 83 is when MTV was coming into play. Hip hop was coming to the fore, coming away from the basics that we heard with Curtis Blow and all that stuff, and Run Them and Grandmaster Flash. We're going into the Bambaataa era. Kraftwerk had been out. I was 9. I remember I was 9-year-old and I heard Kenny Jason play Trans Europe Express, and I had my mom. I was a 9-year-old kid. She went out and bought me. I still had a 12-inch. She bought me a 12-inch of Trans Europe Express, and I was mad because it was in German. It didn't sound like the one I heard on the radio. Now I'm happy that I got the German version of it. Eventually, I got the album. So I just, that's where my love of music came from, with my mom and listening to the stuff we used to listen to. But in any case, Kenny Jason, when he was on BMX, there were some parties they did out in the suburbs. There was a club called the Galaxy that ended up becoming Dilla Gas. I think Julian was the resident DJ. And then we had our skating rinks out here. Romeoville, there was a skating rink called Main Street USA. So the Hot Mix 5 guys started coming out there. And that's when I first saw Kenny. And that's when we were all shocked he was white. like this guy's white, but he got down. And we brought him out to Aurora for a few parties. We had parties at the Romanian Club and the Alamo. And like I said, we hired him for a few parties. He was always professional. I never got to hang out with Kenny Jason. We hired him for parties. He'd come out. He was always professional. He came through. He was grateful that we hired him. He was always humble. We were always impressed with his DJing, a very good DJ. And then I remember him and Eddie. It was like 84, 85 when they came out with now 84. Kenny had the Kenny Jason dance track or jam tracks that he came out with, the beat tracks, international, and he played those. And then he came out with Can You Dance with Fast Eddie and Fast Eddie, that Can You Dance, and that track was a hit, So and it was house music. So people say what they want to say, but that was a house music. It was one of the bigger hits that house music had. And it was people still rock that song. It brings back memories. And, of course, later when they started Hot Mix 5 Records, they had some hits come off there. The biggest one, You Used to Hold Me, by Ralphie Rizzardo and Xavier Gold. That was a cut. So what I also remember about Kenny, he played a lot of the good imports. I remember like Crazy for Your Love by Attack. I remember getting that, hearing them play that. Back in the day, though, it was all about Hypnotic Tango and Caramba Mix. And I don't care what black folks are saying right now, they listen to those songs. All right. I can go to an all black club right now. If they're in our age range, I play Hypnotic Tango, they're gonna like hearing the song. If I play Dirty Talk NBO, they're gonna like hearing the song. If I play Angel Eyes, it's gonna bring back memories. Or even if I play I Feel the Drive by Doctor's Cat, So, the Italo disco music and the more electro stuff was part of what brought us to house music as much as disco, as disco, and I don't think that's talked about enough because we programmed our drums like they were programming. We wanted to do songs like that. If you listen to Dr. Derelict to me sounds like it was trying to be an Italo song, if you know what I'm saying. That's how it sounded. I thought it was an import until I bought the record and I read. That's how I found out that Wayne then was from Chicago. Buying the record, looking at the label and seeing that this was pressed, Precision Records where they were at, and doing the math and buying Come to Me by Gwendolyn and seeing Farley's remixes on that, So that's why I got to know who they were and where they were from, even though I know they were DJing this stuff. But to the rest of us out in the suburban areas, this is how we found out who they were because of Hot Mix 5 playing their music.
Yes.
We talked about Kenny, Mickey Mix and Oliver. You ever mix with Mickey? Did you get to know
him? I've never mixed with Mickey. I was a fan of his style. He was really cold with editing, and the thing is, with a reel and a razor blade, that man is the absolute coldest editor. He would splice up a tape and pretty much he'd make a whole new song out of it. So most of my experience as far as the Hot Mix 5 was really with Kenny and Scott and a little bit with Farley.
Oh, wow. Okay. With me, I got to know, I mixed with Kenny, I mixed with Mickey before. I got to know Mickey later. Great guy. Ralphie, I got to know. I brought him out for a party out in Aurora. Maybe it was 85. I got to know Ralphie. I met him before. That was like going up north to Janelle's. I believe I met him. And this when I was much younger, like 13 or 14. But when I actually got to really talk to him was when I brought him out for a party, and he was super cool, dude. Ralphie was super cool. I'll talk about him a little bit later. I got to know, of course, Mikey Man Wilson because Mike was from my town. Farley, we got to know Farley because Farley would come out for parties in Aurora, and he was always very approachable. And I guess there's a bunch of little kids talking to Farley, and I got to spend with Farley quite a bit because of being around Mike. Scott Smoking Sills, I only met later in years. I never spun with Scott. Who else we have? Steve Hurley. I'm just going with everybody that was ever on the team. Steve Hurley. Like I said, I spun with Steve a couple times. Didn't really get to know him personally, but he was always a straight up friendly guy, always easy to talk to. Good dude, Mario Smoking Diaz, I met him later in life. Julian, I've known Julian for a while. Julian used to spend at the Galaxy when I was a break dancer and Dilligas, so I got to spend a lot of time with Julian. Julian was always, let me tell you a quick Julian story. I did a party with Deuces, had to be 1989. I had a friend of mine, we wanted to be promoters. So we get Medusas to let us do a party on like a Saturday night. And we get the Medusas, we put out the flyers, go to Pronto Print and get our posters up. But at the same time, Tony Batoy was doing a party at the Riv. And of course, the Batoy party murdered us, man. It murdered us, man. It was so Medusas was me, Jesse Della Pena, a DJ named Rick the Ripper, a few of my local homies, and we hired Julian. Julian was the headliner. So mind you, we already have spent money on promotions, everything. There's maybe 20 people in Medusas with us because everybody's at the Riv, man. That's when I learned, do not throw parties on Tony Batoy nights, number one, anywhere in the north side. So I got Julian, and Julian comes to the party. And I don't have Julian's money. Back then, if you got one of the Hot Mix 5 guys out, you already made the deal. I think at the time was $350 or maybe $400 an hour for them to come spend. I did not have Julian's money. I'm like, oh my God, I don't have Julian's money. So Julian gets there. He looks at the room. He sees about 20 of us there. So he's like, what's going on, Rich? I said, oh man. I said, Tony Batoy, I didn't know Tony was having this party. I said, North Side is smaller than I thought it was. Ain't enough people to go around. And he's like, all right. So I thought for sure he's going to trip about his money. And he's like, no, it's all good. And he gave me test presses of a song he did with Brother D. That's back when they were making hip house work it. I believe it was called work it, something. I think it was Work It, but it's like Work That Sucker to Death. Work that sucker, work that sucker. It was a good song. And he gave me test presses of it. He told me it was all good. It didn't even trip, man. And we did parties after that. But that's Julian, always professional, always a great dude. I probably miss Bad Boy Bill, of course. Bill, I've got to know Bill. Spun with Bill a lot, and that's because of Mike. Mike was real tight with Bill and Julian and Farley, so I got to be around them quite a bit. After Bill, Fast Eddie. And Fast Eddie, I got to know. He actually dated a girl from my town. He came up and brought for a party. He dated my friend's sister. So we got to see Eddie a lot. Eddie was always cool. Great DJs. So that's pretty much all of them in a nutshell. So I apologize for running down the gambit. But sticking with the original dudes, Farley. All right. Give me your best Farley memory as far as something you heard him do, a mix that you did, that he did, or event that you were at, your best Farley memory.
My best Farley memory was when he would spin live at midnights on BMX. Now, that was one of the things that really impressed me because I know he was doing a lot of gigs, and he would, because another friend of mine named Sal Mamato, he was kind of like one of the key people that was behind the scenes at BMX when they were in Oak Park, and at the home, they had the studio on top of the senior building out there. And they were bringing 12, he would tell me about how him and Farley were bringing 1200s up to the studio so he could, do his show. And, it was pretty interesting. I mean, I found this out years later, but I had no idea that everything was up to the minute, and Farley is very precise, especially with scratching and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to find out he was doing all that stuff live was very impressive to me. I mean, doing live, I do a live show now, and then, I'm not always technically correct, and I'm human. So, something's going to fall off beat, something's going to skip. So But Farley, that never happened. He was always on point.
I agree with you, man. With all those guys in Hot Mix 5, I'm most familiar with seeing Julian live and hearing him live. Julian was a very technical DJ. Like I said, these DJs today don't know how good they got it. And I don't know, even with the electronics that we got with the controllers, a lot of people can pull off a live show like the Hot Mix 5 used to do, like Farley or Julian or Ralphie. I heard Ralphie spin live on the radio before. They were just technically good. And let me tell you how good all those Hot Mix 5 guys are. We're all older. We're all great DJs now. We all know how to spin. We all learn from them and other people. But we do the Chicago style of Hot Mix. And I'm going to tell you this. I DJed with Mickey Oliver a few years back. Just do a party, I get on. I'm doing my thing. I'm mixing. I'm cold. Mickey gets on. And like I said, he's playing, because it's, people in here old school. He's playing Feel the Dry, Loving Music, all that stuff, and some of the old Chicago house stuff. And, man, it was still awe-inspiring watching him mix. When I see one of the Hot Mix 5 guys, it's just something about how they get down. As good as I think I am now, when I see them, it's like it's always utterly amazing because of how they've done it so long and they have their styles down so pat. It's just they run it. And Farley, we did that party with Farley a few weeks back in May out at the Piazza in Aurora, and I was watching Farley mix. And again, it was just amazing. As good as I am now, and I think I could fade most DJs or at least hang with them. Watching Farley was still utterly amazing to me. Just how just familiar they are with the music and what they're playing and the crowd. It's always a treat to watch Hot Mix 5 guys mix, man. My Farley memory, I don't know if I told this last week, but we were at a party at a place called the Alamo in Aurora, and Mike Hitman Wilson had hired Farley. So Farley's mixing, and we're sitting there. Fast Eddie was there. It's me, Fast Eddie, a couple of the Aurora DJs were talking, and we're watching Farley. He's talking to Hitman. He's playing Faces drums. Now, you and I both know the record Faces drums. The track is about this thin at the end of it,
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to like a minute and a half, 2 minutes tops. And it's tick, 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 it's rolling, and it's getting to the end. And I'm watching Farley like, okay, we're like, oh my God, this record's about to end. What is he going to do? He's in the middle of a mix, but he's talking to Mike about something. And I guess at the last couple seconds, Farley realizes this record's about to end. So he goes over to the 12 as a tick, 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 and he hits that pause button, stop, tick, and right between where the light is and the pitch, I believe. Right? No, I'm sorry. Yes, wherever close to where the needle is at. I think it might be on the other side of the pitch on the 12. I'm sorry, I can't get a 12 in my mind of how it looks. But anyway, he starts hitting. He goes tick, 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 boom. And he says boom. He starts hitting it. It creates a reverb bass sound every time you hit the 12 at that spot. If you stop at 12, that's how I learned how to do it. Learned it from watching Farley do it. If you stop at 12 and the needle's on the record, and you stop it. Once you start hitting that part of the 12, it's gonna go boom, 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 boom. Sort of like the beginning of that one song, Whole Lot of Love. That boom, 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 and he's hitting it. Boom, 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 boom. He picks up another record and then blends it in. The crowd don't even know nothing's happened, man. I was like, God dang, this man is bad. You know what I'm saying? At that point, Farley was like, I was like, Farley, utterly amazing, man. Like I said, we could spend all day talking about how good Farley is. I will talk about his records a bit. I remember when he made a song called Jack Madness. I don't know if you remember. It's that I like percussion. Right? I have a copy of it. It's always kind of, it was scratched up, but it was some samples. And I think he sampled "Took My Love Away. That's the price you had to pay." Dun, 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 dun. And it was cold out. It's like a live version that the woman did of the song. And it just had a whole lot of stuff in it. And then he came out with All Shucks. What'd you think of All Shucks when it came out? Because I was still in my breakdancer mode. So you might have been more house at the time than I was at that time.
I liked it. It was a great record to kind of like, bridge a gap, or if you mixed yourself into a box, that was the record to use.
Mm. All shucks. And you're right. Back then, we did mix ourselves in boxes quite frequently. That was where the rhythm tracks was from. Go Rhythm Wild, or Virgo tracks, as we call it, or Beat 17, Get Your Own Stars, or Faces Drums. You got caught in those situations. It's like, okay, especially if you're mixing some of the old disco stuff, you mix a Hot Shot or something like that. It's a good way to get out of those songs, because you'd be sitting there trying to, or if you want to change from the more disco stuff to the more Chicago stuff, or you might want to play some Italo or some electro. You got to get out of those. I say that to everybody who doesn't know what it means. We done mixed ourselves in a box, because back then when we mixed, it was like a trip. You're going from one place to the other. You're trying to take the crowd somewhere, and you could ultimately mix yourself into a situation where you're sitting there. What do I play next? And you got songs too short. You got to get out quick. Because we didn't have the sample loop button. We had to figure it out real fast, especially if you didn't have, God forbid, if you didn't have a second copy of the song. If you have one and you can't even grab another copy to mix it back to start over, you having a problem. But I remember when it came out, and I liked it. It was different. It was like it was different. And it I think Farley's music always shows his personality. You know what I'm saying? It's like his personality comes through in his songs. Because when he made was it Funk with the Drums 1, I call it, the one that was on House Records. Every one of those tracks to this day I can still play. The Snare Love, the Jack and the Bass. I mean, Jack and the Bass being the most famous one that we played. Of course, with the tap, 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 tap. And that, to me, that was just Farley to me. It's just, that's his personality, just beating the brakes off something, And then after that was, I think, was it Funkin' with the Drums Again on Trax Records. I think that was the next thing he released, because I think that came out before Jack the Bass. I remember when Funkin' with the Drums Again, that EP was hypnotic. And then, like I said, everybody can say what they want to say about Farley. That is the only DJ I know that had people in Chicago playing his name in their mixes. All right, we played his name in our mixes, because that Farley track, that was to the rhythm of Funkin' with the Drums, which is his basic theme to me, because that's a theme, and Jack the Bass, he had that bad boy. He made Jack the Bass when it breaks. People say what they want to say. They can hate on Farley all they want to, but I guarantee you they played his name, and we wasn't playing their names. Did you play anybody else's name in your song?
Maybe Hurley's. That's about it.
Maybe Hurley's with JM Silk. Other than that, I can't think of nobody's name that, and it's so identifiable. I told you, my wife, even though she's from Chicago, she never really listened to house music. She didn't like house music. I know, don't ask. It's a mixed marriage. but no, I understand. But she know who Farley is, though. That she does know. People knew. He's famous. He's the guy. He is truly the king of house in Chicago, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that's an exaggeration at all. What do you think?
I believe he is the king of house. I believe he was alongside that whole movement, and since he was on radio, the largest nightclub anybody could ever have. That would, as far as I'm concerned, he is the king of house music.
Absolutely. Farley is undisputably the king of house music. You can't take that away from the man. I mean, his later tracks, after Funk with the Drums, of course, I think most people would say that his most famous track is Love Can't Turn Around. I liked Love Can't Turn Around. I liked Daryl Pandy. I think it's a great song. It's not one of my favorites, though. I have both of the versions, the original version and remix. That's not my favorite Farley song.
Well, there's a backstory on that. I'm not going to get into it now because it's in the past.
Everybody knows what happened. Was it true? Did you hear? And I'm going to ask Farley when I interview him. we know that Steve Hurley wanted to remake I Can't Turn Around by Isaac Hayes. And Steve had remade it. There's a version he had on, I believe it was, I don't know if it was a 4-track or he had it on reel to reel, but he would play it from time to time, his version of I Can't Turn Around. And he was going to release I Can't Turn Around, a remix that Steve was going to do. And Farley beat him to the punch with Love Can't Turn Around. I know he did that one with Jesse Saunders and them. That big fat bass drum that you guys hearing is not a 909, it's not an 808, it's a Linn drum. Farley used the Linn drum in quite a bit of his songs, which is why it had that distinct bass sound that you couldn't replicate it in 909 or 808. That Linn drum is the same drum machine that Prince used, I should say. Ready for the World used. Very expensive drum machine, but Farley and Jesse Saunders them used the Linn drum too. And that's why those songs were those distinct, those boom, 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 ta-da, boom, boom, boom. They rocked harder than the 909 or 808s. So when he came up, Love Can't Turn Around, and they work your body, boom, boom. He jacked the bass on that bad boy. I don't know if it's really stealing because they all stole it from Isaac Hayes at the end of the day.
Well,
but making the house first.
I know the backstory on it because Steve and Farley were roommates at the time. They were both DJing, and I do know that that's that part I'll speak on, and I won't, and I'll have to, it's something that I won't say on camera, but
okay.
But yeah, I know they were both roommates, and Farley, I'll just say released it first.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the most that I'll say on camera.
Okay, and I'll let when I get Farley on, I'm asking straight because he knows we're going to have to ask about that because people say that he stole House Nation. They say that he stole Jack My Body, and people will say that. And like I said, I'm gonna ask him about it because there's people that have some feelings about that. I will say I'm gonna have Carl Bias on next week, and Master C and J. I forgot the name of the song that they had done it verse that. And Farley came out with Give Yourself to Me afterwards. And he did jack them. the strings, everything. But he did it the Farley way. I mean, I think he had Kevin Irving, Rick Dillard, Daryl Pandy singing the vocals. Jack your body. I love Kevin, anything Kevin sang. But that version kind of came out. And but the term was bogus too, because he was pressing all that stuff, knowing good and damn well that he had both those versions of the song. So I wish I could remember the name of the Master C and J song. But Farley's was Give Yourself to Me. So, and we'll ask Farley about that. I mean, that's part of the reputation he had, and it was back then. People were doing all kind of cutthroat stuff to people. I had tracks that I made that got stole by DJs. So back then, if you weren't gonna put it out, if you better make sure that you don't let nobody hear it.
Yeah, everybody grows with age. Everybody's moral compass, it wasn't the same back then. So that's the most I'll say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. People grow, people change. And okay, the Master C and J version was When You Hold Me. So that was around 85, 86. And I like both versions, but Farley's had the vocals to it, and it is what it is, And like I said, when I talk to him, we'll talk more about that because I want to hear what his position is about all that stuff. So we talked about Farley, all right. We talked about Mickey, Kenny, Ralphie. You ever spin with Ralphie?
I have not. I met him in passing at the House of Blues when they did the first Hot Mix 5 reunion, and that was my only interaction with him. I'm always been impressed with Ralphie's style because Ralphie was soulful before the term soulful came out.
Absolutely. Ralphie I got a few Ralphie stories. I got one Ralphie clarity story that I'm going to have to tell. Ralphie, I brought out when I was 15. I did a party. And it was the first time I had a Hot Mix 5 guy out that I hired for a party. I had done some parties with Hitman and a few other people that they had brought Hot Mix 5 guys out. So Ralphie was the first one I brought out. I brought him out. When he came to the party, I was signing a contract with the Aurora Police Department for security. And so I'm signing this contract and giving the money. And Ralphie comes over and says, "Do they know how old you are that you can't sign a contract?" I said, "Apparently they don't." And we go upstairs, and I still mix it for about half hour. Ralphie wanted some time to chill from the ride. And he told me I was a good DJ. Just, you can't. Ralphie Rosario told me I was a good DJ, just messed my head up. I was messed up for about a month after that. And then Ralphie gets on. He does this incredible mix, just smooth. I mean, just flawless mix, flawless. And it was just great. So I spun a few parties with Ralphie after that. And then there's one party. I think Ralphie got salty with me. There's a party we did at a club called Club Alternative. This had to be 88. And Ralphie comes out. And, we were paying Ralphie, I think we were going to pay him $500 to come out. Party was packed out, but the club owner was being shady. And she said, "Well, we didn't make enough." And I was too stupid. I was young. She said, "We didn't make enough to pay this guy. I only got half his money." I said, "Well, shoot, okay." So I just told Ralph, "Hey, Ralph, they only got half your money. I'll give you the other half later," because I was just going to pay him out of my pocket. I just didn't have any money with me. In any case, I guess he went back there because he knew the game she was playing. He ended up getting his money. And I think he thought that somehow I was trying to cheat him. So, Ralph, if you ever watch this, it wasn't me. It was the club owner because I was too young to know what she was on. But anyway, other than that, though, I saw him a few more times after that. We'd hang out. I hung out at the shelter with him a couple times when he was DJing there. And like I say, Ralph is always professional and smooth. And I love the way he mixes. I can listen to old Ralphie Rosario mixes, and still really enjoy them, Okay, so we did Mickey, Farley, Ralphie, Kenny, the last one, Scott Sills. So I never spun with Scott Sills. I seen him mix live once or twice. What's your but I remember him on the radio. And on the radio, he always had some pretty decent mixes. I always enjoyed them. What are your Scott Sills moments?
Well, he was one of the ones that I am, admired too. Now we met later on, and we talked from time to time, about the state of house and everything from now and then. But my first time spending with him, I don't know if you remember the old school house party 4 at the Cubby Bear.
I do remember that. I remember that Cubby Bear Lounge.
I opened that party for Scott and the Hot Mix 5.
Oh, okay.
So that was my first time spending with with Farley, Kenny, and Scott, and actually Maurice too, because Maurice did that party too. Not Joshua Culpepper.
Maurice Culpepper. Okay. Wow. All right. So we've covered all 5 of the guys. I will say, Mickey and his edits. You had mentioned that. I don't think a lot of people realize those edits that Mickey Oliver was doing. He was doing those edits, and they were splicing back then on reel-to-reel tape. This wasn't like getting on, Ableton or Pro Tools or Logic or Reason. They had to splice stuff. I remember talking to Man Parrish about how they edited Boogie Down Bronx and the painstaking process. And if I ever get to interview the Latin Rascals, I'm going to have to ask them because they did the same thing. I don't know if you remember the song Once Upon a Time by John Roca.
Yeah, very well. That's actually, I have to kind of skip back to that because Ralphie did this one sequence with Once Upon a Time or Once Upon a Dove where he backtracked it.
Oh, I remember that.
I do that same routine to this day because, and it was the way he did it. It was a classic. He made a whole new song out of it.
Ralphie with Once Upon. So I'm gonna have to ask. Once Upon a Time, Once Upon a Dove. I mean, from what people like Juan Smith and the whole South Side crew, you guys out south never listened to Once Upon a Time. That's what
I did.
Well, they act like they never, else is white people music to them, which is the type of stuff, the type of ridiculous ignorance that we're hearing from people who really weren't DJing at the time, who might have listened to their big brothers playing the music. But at the end of the day, this is the ignorance is leading to this ridiculous racial narrative, that this is just an only black music thing, or that only black DJs were listened to, or only black music was being played. We really got to get away from that, because songs like Once Upon a Time, Latin Rascals, and Arthur Baker with that one, that is a classic. I listen to that sometimes now, and like I said, why I'd want to interview those guys is every one of those edits on Once Upon a Dub, those weren't samplers. You know what I'm saying? They had to edit that. When I'm hearing that, every one of those parts had to be edited. They were splicing. Man, that had to be painstaking, man. I can't even imagine. They could count measures by how much tape they were using. An inch represented this much, a half inch. Man, that's meticulous. But when you listen to those remixes or those dub versions of those songs, man, I can only imagine, But Mickey was doing the same thing. He was doing those edits, and it was amazing, I remember back then, like Relaxed by
Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Frankie Goes to Hollywood, the song. I mean, it got on my nerves after a while, but it was still fun. At dun dun dun. So again, a lot of the electronic music around the world influenced house music in Chicago, which we talked about last week. We talked about blending, and you talked about people were blending music. So you talk about other people, but people weren't hot mixing music like we do. That's the difference in Chicago, how we go from beginning to end, and we are mixing and we are moving the crowd a certain way. We talked about New York, and while we were off camera, we went over it. And I just wanted to touch base. We talked about New York, and we talked about DJ Tony Humphries, who is incredible, by the way. One of the Jersey guys made some comments, and he talked about the fact that he said that the 1984 to 87 area, he said this is the period, the bedrock period of Club Zanzibar, where the club was a force in dance music scene, playing only second to the Paradise Garage in New York. They worked in tandem with Club Zanzibar, booking and recording artists for showcases. This is the part. He said, it is at this point where we were introduced to Chicago house music. Prior to 1984, we had no knowledge of what house was or knowing the term. They were immersed in what was coming out of New York from Prelude, South Soul, West End, and other small independent music, independent labels. But this is when they got to hear how we got down, and I think that's important, because there's some people in New York that claim that they created house music, which to me is an utterly ridiculous presupposition. But I think that need to be addressed. They were doing dance music in New York. Let's be real. New York is the multicultural capital of the world, outside of London, perhaps, maybe, and also, he also said here about the clubs, he said Club Zanzibar was black and Puerto Rican. He said Zanzibar was a big city, but was still smaller than New York, and it was segregated by race, similar to Chicago, due to white flight in the 60s. Blacks visually more prominent in the major clubs. But in those major clubs between 84 and 87, they were mostly playing traditional danceable R&B in all tempos and flavors, 70s R&B, soul, funk, disco, classic, disco with a funk R&B feel, a lot of electro, funky, soulful freestyle. They didn't go too far with it. Italo, we played that too. Funky new wave, funky rock, reggae, Colonel Abrams, visual, Tammy Lucas, that kind of stuff. They said in New York, he said, were multicultural. These are clubs in New York were black, Latino, white, Asian, and so I just say all this because to me, music is a universal thing. It's either good or bad, ultimately. And by the way, I'm not trying to take away anything from what we as black people do. Obviously, foundationally, when it comes to disco, R&B, dance music, hip hop, jazz, blues. I mean, I don't think there's any major music form in the United States that was not foundationally built on what we were doing at some point in time. be it rock and roll. I mean, I honestly can't think of one. Something homegrown here in the United States was founded on Black people doing music, you know, be it, like I said, blues, jazz, country western, rock and roll, obviously soul, R&B, hip hop, and house music, you know. So I'm not trying to take away the what we as Black people did with the music. I'm simply saying that there were other people, other groups of people that were part of that movement and were great DJs like Kenny Jason and great producers like, you know, Ralphie and Kenny producing tracks, and later early prior to that, you know, with other forms of dance music, we had Arthur Baker and John Roby and Man Parrish and all of them. So, you know, music is universal. I don't believe anyone's a guest in the world of house music. I don't like that term, guest in the world of hip hop. Either you can get down or you can't get down. Simple as that. Either you can get down or you can't get down. If you can get down, get down. If you can't get down, you can't get down. I don't care what color you are. You know, you can either make beats, you can either blend records, scratch, get down, whatever you do. You either get down or you don't get down. You know, sound like I
agree with that.
Sound like beans. Either you get down or you lay down. You know, but
yeah, that's one thing that I've been. Now, at one point, I did my own mix show on 100.3. Well, WILV, and I was accused by the so-called underground purists. Well, you play white disco. I'm like, I just play disco. I don't. It's not white. It's not black. It's just good. That's, you know, if people have an issue with me, you know, just playing a variety of music, if it gets the women on the dance floor and it fits the vibe of what I just got through playing, I'll play it. That's my secret.
You know, I just never looked at it that way. Either the song was good or it wasn't. You know, when I play music, either it is a good song or it's not a good song. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
When we were playing It's More Fun to Compute by Kraftwerk, did it matter they were German dudes?
No.
I didn't think about them being German. When I first heard Trans Europe Express, clearly made in Europe, clearly by Europeans, did not care. You know, I didn't care. It was a cold track, you know?
Right.
So I don't get that. Like, because sometimes if I'm mixing, I sent you a mix the other week. Some of the songs on there were what some would call techno, electro. I didn't care. Either it works in the mix, it's good, or it don't. Because when we talked about being on Track Source, you got the Jackin' House and the Groovin' House and the Afro-Caribbean House and the deep soulful house, and you know, all those categories. I'm not really going through for that. I'm going through either this song is hidden or it's not hidden. Simple as that.
Yeah.
And no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just agreeing.
Yeah, because it just, I think that's just it, I think it kills our music when we start categories like that. And I think this whole you're playing white music. What? You know, it's like, I just want to know if the song is hidden. And will we want anybody to do that to us? We didn't in the 60s when Elvis was getting dissed because he was doing black music. You know, when Motown came out and they had to put white people on the albums to sell the records, you know, because, you know, just listen to the music. Either you like it or you don't. And if you like it, then you got to like the artist with it. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be that way. You know, and we don't have to minimize input of other people to maximize what we've done. You know, I don't have to minimize what Jelly Bean Benitez did or what Arthur Baker did or what Man Parrish did or what, you know, Klein and B.O. did or Kraftwerk did or Giorgio Moroder before we get to where we're at, you know, to truly talk about the great contributions that were made by Chicago DJs and producers making house music. I don't have to minimize Kenny Jam and Jason to talk about how good Farley was. You know, I don't have to minimize, you to minimize Marshall Jefferson in order to maximize how good Adonis was, or Larry Hurd. Everybody brought what they brought to the table, and they brought some good stuff. The people that brought the thunder brought the thunder, and I'm always respecting them for that, So that's pretty much it, man. I mean, we could go on, Are you spinning anywhere? I know you got your radio show. I shared it with some folks on the History House page. Tell us about your show a little bit.
All right. Well, JM3 Live from Chicago. That's just a show where I just mix what's good. If it catches my ear, I play it. That's pretty much it. It's based off of what I heard on BMX. That's actually the foundation of it. Spinning live is what Farley used to do. I'm doing the same thing. It's just that if it's good, I'm gonna play it. I don't, I was doing 3 hours. I'm doing 2 in the summer because of, my time is kind of limited. But I'm on a radio station called Shade. Well, it's a group of DJs. Shades Mix DJs. We got it's not like it's just a DJ team. Each DJ has a different day. I got Fridays. I play a mixture, disco funk, old school R&B, house, and even new disco, which I'm really been pushing because that's going to take the music forward. So that, I do that every Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. The information is on my Facebook and on my website.
Okay.
And my next gig is I'm going to be at Bar 10 on West Taylor Street in the city. Cinema Sessions. That's Sharice and Sonny Sheba. They highlight different DJs. They asked me to come and play. Then I'm gonna be there like in August. So far that's all I have. They just announced what is that? I think Tony Rosales is doing another hot mix festival.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to get on that. I was on the last one at McCormick Place on Scott Seal's stage, so I'm trying to see if
man. And I was there. I was in Mickey's stage. I went to Farley's room when Byron was singing, and I was over at Mickey's. I was on stage. I didn't spin, and he's like, he would have let me. I should have. I didn't even think to ask. I was just happy that I got to go and hang out with them. That was a nice event. The reunion party that they did there. Tony Rosales, it was a nice event.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was something there for everybody. So, and I wish that the underground would take note of that. You don't have to colorize house music for it to be good. Just play good music and keep it moving.
Play good music and keep it moving, man. The house purists. 2 things that are dangerous right now for house music. Oh, and by the way, send me a link to your website. I'm going to put that in the YouTube video. It'll be at the not in the comments section, but in the about the video section. And just let everybody know tonight. Well, actually, this is going to air tomorrow, so it won't be relevant. But the next time I will be really getting down with my crew. Mike Speichner and Mike Speichner, Reggie Chandler, DJ Daryl Fox. I think Kiki Kenny. I think Mike Hitman might be with us. Be out in Aurora. We do our annual picnic August 25th. Not quite as big as Chosen Few, but it has had usually a few hundred people. And people get down. It's very peaceful. People bring their kids, barbecue, and we play a lot of good house music. We play new house music as well as older house music. I'm always going to play new stuff. I'm going to play those classics that are great. I'm going to be honest with you. I ain't going to play no bullshit. Y'all want to hear something that every DJ done paid 50 times? I'm probably not going to play it. because this is not how we get down. My job as a DJ is, if you're truly a house head, my job is to introduce you to new music. My job is to play your favorite song to you before it's your favorite song. And we got to get out of the mindset of saying, oh, you're playing for yourself when you're doing that. No, we're not. We're trying to push the music forward. I'm tired of seeing house music festivals being geriatric conventions where everybody look like they're about to get a walker. All right. And the kids look like they're being forced to be there, held hostage. All right. Let's not do that. Let's bring some youthful music in, some new music. And for the young folks who like dance music, let them embrace it. I don't care what color they are. If they like it, let's bring them in. These young folks that want to become DJs, let's work with them as well. Let's get their mind right, get them the understanding how to blend records like Farley and them did for us coming in the door, and and Julian and Steve Hurley, how they showed us how to get down. Let's show these young DJs how to get down and how to blend music, even though their computers blend it for them. Sometimes they're playing a song that it ain't lining up right. We got to show them how to handle that so that they don't fall off beat. You know what I'm saying? So I know I just went on a rant there, but yeah, it's time for us to start doing that, man. And also, again, I know as I do events, John, me and you're connected now, and I've listened to your music. As I do my own stuff, I'll invite you out to DJ at some of the sets we're doing so people get introduced to different DJs. There's a lot of great DJs in Chicago, and we're all at this point in age, we're all making our money in other means for the most part. So for us to get together, nobody's in competition like that anymore. And if we ever get back to that point, so be it, but there's room for everybody. There's room for good DJs, especially if we start bringing it back to being about new music and making the crowd actually understand and listen and grow with the music. The Hot Mix 5, when they mixed the older stuff, they would always introduce us to new songs. We would have never heard Time to Jack and It's House and Jack Your Body and Work Your Body and Music is a Key and Like This if they refused to play anything new. If they only want to play ESG Moody and Hot Shot and Black Ivory, if that's all they wanted to play, we would never heard the newer stuff.
Right.
They at some point had to make our favorite record our favorite record. That favorite record you have now, Move Your Body by Marshall Jefferson, somebody in Hot Mix 5 had to play that first. Y'all didn't know who Marshall Jefferson was for the most part. I knew who he was as a producer, but I was a DJ. The average person did not know who Marshall Jefferson was and did not know until the Hot Mix 5 played Move Your Body.
Right.
So that's the thing. You have to be open to newer music in order for your favorite song that you don't know is your favorite song to become your favorite song. That's all I'm going to say. I know I ranted, John. My apologies for going off on that, but I've been wanting to say that for a while. Got to be open to music, because I get tired of when DJs like you or myself are playing different things and we're being told we're playing for ourselves. I can sit at home and play for myself, make my own mixes for me and listen to them, but I'm trying to bring us up. The rest of the world don't pass Chicago by. I DJ'd in Miami. People liked hearing new music, and there were young people there that weren't forced to be there, that wanted to be there to hear the music. The clubs in New York don't have that problem. There's young and old people there getting down to dance music. I talked to people in South Africa, young and old people in Cape Town, listening to house music. Manchester, England, same thing. London, England, same thing. San Francisco, same thing. Dallas, Texas has a house scene. Kansas City, Missouri does. We don't have one in Chicago, the birthplace of house music. We should be embarrassed by that fact.
Yeah.
I could take being paced by New York or London, Kansas City, Missouri, really? We getting paced by Kansas City? I'm like, okay, what's next? Going to be getting paced by Milwaukee, Indianapolis or something? It's like, it just doesn't make sense. Chicago's a world-class city. And like I said, I could take New York, because New York is big and New York is diverse. And New York is open 24 hours a day. They don't close. Chicago closes. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. We are closed. But New York don't close, So, we're still a Midwestern town, but we are the birthplace of house music. Come on. You know what I'm saying? How can we be the birthplace of house music if we don't even have any real consistent house music venues in Chicago?
Well, we have to be open to club culture. That's part of the problem is, and the biggest thing that hurt us, I'm not going to go too far into, was the E2 tragedy. And they kind of shifted away from club culture after that. We have to get people open to the mentality of going to a nightclub to go out to dance.
Right.
And
well, what also killed us, I'm gonna say, the E2 tragedy. Again, obviously, my condolences to all the families that lost someone for that, and rest in peace to the people that passed, and it was a tragedy. But back to my point, hip hop did us in, man. It really did. And nothing against hip hop music. I love hip hop. It's one of my first loves. However, as it got gangster, everything else got gangster. The ascendance of NWA and later Dr. Dre, and don't get me wrong, I was out in LA for all that, man, and I love those dudes, and I love hearing Snoop and Cube and Dre and DJ Quick and MC Ren and MC8. I love that, but unfortunately, that helped facilitate a culture that ain't conducive to clubs. That's conducive to something jumping off all the time, because unfortunately, our people want to keep it real, and as Dave Chappelle said, keeping it real often goes wrong. Often ends up with somebody shooting, and that's just not good for club culture. House music, we didn't have those problems when we rented our halls or when we had our parties, when we had our clubs, because house music kind of makes you enjoy. You're too tired to try. You danced all night. You go to release. You would go to a house club to release the week, to enjoy the music, to flow with the music, to dance and sweat. And heck, we weren't even really trying to talk to girls too much. We was trying to just want to hear the music. What's the new music and the dance? Get it. It was that culture. It's very different. And in Chicago, hip hop is deadly in Chicago right now with that drill music. It's literally deadly. You can pull up a video, kids jumping up and down, pointing guns at each other. I asked some of the young folks, I said, where are the women at in y'all videos? There's a bunch of hard legs with shirts off, jumping in and down, talking about what they're going to do to the ops. That's not good. Hopefully hip hop culture has a change, and I think another problem with hip hop culture is they've made hip hop synonymous with being a gangster. You have to, it's not enough to be a good MC. How many people have you killed? Did you really sell drugs? What mob were you affiliated with? What gang? It's like, to the point, I was talking to some young folks about Ice Cube. And they said, well, Ice Cube, he ain't even a real gangster. I said, does he have to be? Shouldn't he just be the best MC? Shouldn't that be the point? That's just shows, and that's a whole different conversation I can go on about. I'm not going to rant any further about it. But we do.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that real quick.
Go ahead.
The whole reason that a lot of the founding fathers of rap was taking people off the street to get them, give them something positive to do. But the radio and music industry brought them right back to the street, and that's the problem.
The music industry did push that line. You and I were DJs back then. I remember, like I said, when hip hop started reasserting its dominance in Chicago, I was more of a Rakim, KRS-One, later Tribe Called Quest, De La. And I said last week, somebody asked me, well, you said you house people started listening to Neo Soul. Neo Soul won out. Yes, it was. Soul to Soul was out. All right. That's what we started listening to. When Soul to Soul came out, of course, there was still some house music from overseas. Stevie V was out with his stuff. You had stuff come from Italy, of course. But at the end of the day, we were listening to more stuff like that. When I went out to California in early 90, 91 and 92, when I was out there, that's when I started listening to gangster rap. And my friend Milashan always says, well, it wasn't that you like the gangster rap, you just like funk. I love funk music. So they were sampling and remaking a lot of funk, because at the time I was still playing X-Clan, because X-Clan had a lot of funk in their stuff. So if you get down, like I said, my mom got me the music. I know every Parliament album when it came out. I remember when she brought One Nation on the Groove to the house, and I was rocking to it, and Aqua Boogie and Flashlight, all that stuff. That was my stuff. So West Coast matching the hip hop, matching the funk with the gangster fairy tales. And I'm not saying they didn't do what they did, but I'm saying initially it was telling stories about how the hood is not good. You want better. I would say it was after the release of The Chronic that you start getting the song started shifting to being the hood is not just not that the hood ain't good, but this is the hood. We like it. I'm a drug dealer. I'm proud of it. You know, this is the streets, and we proud of these streets. You know, people were claiming Compton and Long Beach and South Central, and it just started changing the face of music. And at that point, all the stuff we was listening to, the Tribe Called Quest, De La's, all that, went to the background. KRS One to the background, and everybody jumped on being gangster. I don't think New York was really had any dominance until I think Wu-Tang and Bad Boy came back, and they were trying to be a little street and gangster. And ultimately, we know things evolve. So now we're at a point where not only was it at first it's just being in the hood telling the gangster story. Yeah, I seen this. This is how I came up. Then it was I participated. I was gang banging. I was with the mob. I was with the business. Now it comes down to how many bodies you got. You know, yeah, this dude's a BD. This dude's a GD. This dude's a Rolling 60 Crip. This dude's a Blood. And that is they claim to fame on top. So you can't just be an MC, you know. It's really sad, you know, because you're right. The music started as alternative to that type of conflict. We're not going to fight and gangbang. We're going to break dance against each other. We're not going to fight and gangbang. We're going to rap against each other. Or we're going to do competing graffiti tags. Or we're going to do competing DJ scratching. Who's the best DJ? That is the foundation of hip hop. And I think everyone has seemed to have forgotten that. And it's really amazing to me that all these New York dudes talking about hip hop and the birth of hip hop and, you know, how they, you know, as they're ignoring everything, they don't put that message out there. They're too busy trying to say, well, this is black music. It's black music. It's black music as opposed to what was the point of the music? Why did hip hop do what it do? It was conflict, alternative conflict resolution. Go take it to the street. Go take it to the floor. Go take it to the turntables. Go take it to the mic. You know, and now the mics are used to forward the street culture, the gangster culture. And we can blame the majors for pushing that because there was a decision. I don't know if it was a conscious decision or it was just Snoop Dogg made so much money with the phenomenon with Boys in the Hood movie coming out and Ice Cube became a star. I don't know if that was it, but at the end of the day, the negative took over and it started being pushed hard. And now we got drill music that's a death cult music. Literally, it's death cult music. I listen to the song. You know, I listen to see if it's the production. No, it's not because I'm older. You know, like, no, I love new music. I will always love new music as long as it's good. But I'm concerned with what I'm hearing. It's death cult music. You know, spiritually speaking, I'm not going to preach as they say in the church. I'm not going to preach today. But spiritually speaking, what you put out, what you intake, if you are intaking a certain thing, that thing starts to affect you. And music is energy, man. If you're putting out negative energy, man, if you put it out and people are receiving that negative energy, that's affecting you, whether you understand it or not. You know, and people need to understand that. I mean, I've had the pleasure of DJing with groups of 1,500, 2,000 people, you know, looking out at the crowd. And, you know, real talk, I've ministered to people before. I've spoken to people ministry-wise. I'm going to tell you, when you're standing in the DJ booth and you're standing in the pulpit and when you're looking out speaking or you're playing that music, you're having the same effect. I've seen it. The same look. I learned this from Ron Hardy. Ron could play music, have everybody in the damn room crying. Everybody crying. I was utterly amazed because I wasn't impressed with Ron as a DJ. I'm like, oh, I'm a Hot Mix 5 dude. You're not blending. You're not on beat. I'm like, who is this dude? But then when I saw the crowd responding, the emotional control he had over the crowd, people crying and hugging on songs he was playing. And then people or he could make a riot there and happen. People just dancing so hard about to pass out. That's power. Music has power that people don't understand. If you could do that with music, you know, people say music tames the savage beast. That's correct. You know, there's a reason why people used to play music at war to intimidate the troops when they were coming, banging those drums. It is spiritual. There's a spiritual aspect to music. And this negative death cult music, man, it is having a negative effect. It may not be the cause of all the violence that we've seen, but it's the soundtrack to it, you know? And that's not what hip hop was made to do, you know? But that being said, let me quit, man. We're going to have to, if you're willing, all right, I'm going to have you on my other show. My other show is a social political show. And we'll talk about music and culture if you ever want to do, because you seem to be extremely knowledgeable about music in general. So it'd be a great conversation. So I'm not trying to put you in the spot, but I'm asking you to be on the political show for one of our segments. We can talk about music and what's going on. I want your thoughts on that. Is that fair enough?
That's fair enough, because I have a lot to say about that.
Cool. We will do that. Because John, like, dang, cuz, you have me on every week. But I appreciate you, brother. I'm gonna let you know. I know you got things to do. It's a Saturday. This will be airing on Sunday. All right. I think I aired at 3:00 on Sunday, so it'll be out. And just, hey, people, any questions you have, hey, Richard Graves at live.com. If you don't agree with or you have something to add to what I'm saying, special shout out to the people in Jersey who got at me and let me know what was going on at Club Zanzibar, because like I said, I only had the pleasure of being there one time. And I think one of the guys, Clubhead 433, he did some comments on our video, and he really laid it out there. Thank you, brother. And, I hope that we keep hearing from people from New York and all around the world who love house music. But, we're going to keep talking about and pushing the line Chicago music. Like I said, I will add in the about section, I'm going to add all your information. Okay? And that being said, we are done. I'm a holler. Everybody enjoy their weekend. Peace.